I wish ugly buildings are cheaper
Ah,
because they end up actually spending a lot more money in doing some of these things. Often the thought is like the architect's fees are expensive, so maybe you find somebody, or like you said, some AI can produce something for you. But there's so much that goes into designing buildings that, as I said, better trust it to the one who is that trained for it. It's difficult to even say what is Ghanaian. How many languages don't we have in Ghana? So which one is Ghanaian? If to say African, how many languages don't we have across Africa? But you have many nations out there which maybe they just speak one language with a little bit of a variation. And so it's easy to say, this is our language, this is our people. This woman has been good to me for 25 years. What gift am I going to give to her? That is truly me. I mean, we are done the cars and the diamonds and the gold and all of those things. But now what? I mean, for 25 years. And I thought about doing a home that I designed and actually construct. And I wanted it to be a surprise as well for her.
hey, SM, how are you doing today?
I'm good, Kamal. Good to see you.
Yes, so SM, today we are going to have as rich a conversation as we can. Please feel free. Tell us everything that you know. And please let's not just stick to your profession. Go as far as you can. So let's start with your origin story. Who is SM?
So S stands for Samuel, M is in Braille. So I'm SM Quartey. I'm first of 7 sons to Professor SM Quartey. But right from primary school, my friends just choose to call me SM. I mean, I recall a time where I thought that it would be nice to be called Sami or something like that. But I must say that later as an architect, I feel being called SM gives you a fine identity, which is a key thing in architecture anyway. So SM.
SM.
Yes.
Can you paint me that picture of having 7 brothers and probably a father figure who is quite a giant in his field? Do you shrink or are you forced to be responsible? And where do you lie in that 7 figure?
So I grew up with responsibility and leadership as very much central to my personality. My father himself is first of his siblings. So having to lead, having to be the first in many situations and having to set example for the rest of them is essentially part of my growing up principles. I don't know. I mean, I hear these kind of questions, and is all I know. All I know is to lead. So it's a second nature to me, or it's my nature, and or to take decisions and to be able to engage my brothers, and as they grow, to respect them as they are no more the little ones, but also old enough. But life has always been about being the first and the leader anyway, right from childhood.
And for you, in terms of having this father figure who is clearly a professor,
Right.
what field was that in?
More academic in sociology, geography, the like.
Okay.
Yeah. So he's a university professor.
Okay, here in Ghana.
He is in Ghana.
Okay.
He did some work in Ghana and then later on for 15 years in University of Lagos, but he came back to the University of Education in Winneba,
Okay.
where he retired.
And do you personally, if you're from a family of 7, you know, you're the firstborn, as you clearly noted, does that responsibility go on to translate to the kind of career you choose, or do you think that you still have the autonomy to be whoever you want to be without necessarily following your father's footsteps?
Come on, sounds like you've gotten some inside information about my struggles to being an architect. So my father and mother had this thought. I believe for many Ghanaian families, 30, 40 years ago, the thought was that I should be a doctor. That if the son should become a doctor, they will be so proud. And so I was in science class, though some of my teachers thought I was best suited for arts career. I always loved to draw. But truth is that I never considered myself also like an exceptional artist, but I had strong leanings in art, and I could not fathom chemistry. It was a bit of a mystery for me, and I knew that if I had to go the path my parents wanted me to go, I needed to get over chemistry. And so, at an early stage, possibly about age 15, in conversations with some of my friends, I found out about architecture. And it seemed to appeal to who I am. That I mean, I love mathematics, that's fine with me, but I love something to do with the arts and creativity. And so, possibly to go in that direction. I couldn't discuss with my parents, they would not have it. So, my father found out I was in a science class because they were not in Ghana. So he comes one holidays or something. I tell them that I didn't go to the science class in CISFOL, that I'm actually now doing economics, geography, and mathematics, which was going to lead me to architecture. For years, he thought I had failed in terms of what vision he had for his first son. Many years later, he had admitted that he's proud that I took this architecture, but it was always at the beginning an effort to try to convince him that it's something to be proud of to be an architect and not a doctor. I mean, that's a little surprising for a university professor. You'd think that he would have known that an architect is still quite a respectable profession, but I think it was just deeply entrenched in his mind that his first son ought to be an architect. So later, I thought, not exactly, but I make a joke that I married a doctor to kind of
compensate for the. Now, let's build up on that just a bit, because you are ultimately your father's son. What do you think, whether the way you were raised or whether his vision of how his first son should turn out, has that in any way informed the way you became a father many years later?
Whoa, okay. So I think so. I learned to be a lot more freer with my children in the choices they make pertaining to, relating to their career directions. I learned not to be that insistent that they go in this direction or that direction. But yes, as a father today, I owe much of who I am today to how good a father I've been blessed with. One of the things I'm proud to tell most people is that amongst all my brothers, we still don't know who is my father or mother's favorite.
Wow.
They choose to love us equally. And I've learned it to be a very essential part of parenting, that you embrace the children regardless of their different characters. You love them as same as possible. And it makes the siblings themselves relate very well. So today, I call my brothers my best friends, but that is essentially due to the kind of parenting I had, which did not make any of us a special child.
So you end up going to uni. Of course, you're pivoting a bit from the sciences. Now you've entered architecture. Did it at any point when you're in school feel like you were taking something lesser than, or did you feel like, I am at home, this is what almost my purpose in life feels like? Or when you're in that classroom, you still feel like, maybe if this does not work out, society will have something to hold against me?
I must confess, I struggled as a student architect. I really struggled. I recall, and not too long ago, it's been a contrasting story since I finished school. I was a teaching assistant. I've been invited several times to speak at graduations for School of Architecture, been invited several times to be a visiting lecturer and things like that. And each time I go to that department, I can't help but recall what the contrasting story was as a student. I recall in second year, and I vividly remember where I was sitting. I took a decision I was going to quit the school. It was pretty difficult. Very challenging. The demands was just too much. Very intense School of Architecture was. And I kept thinking of alternative courses I could go and undertake, which would be a lot more easier to handle. I am happy that I stayed in there, but yes, each time that I had to, like when school reopens and I'll be going to school, all the way in the bus to Kumasi. My tummy would be just turning, just scared. Because I was in a class from first year, we're like 19 in a class. There's so much focus on each student. And architecture is very much the opinions of your lecturers and all of that. And admittedly, I don't think I was such a very serious student. I had other things that used to take my time. I was so into Scrabble and wanting to have fun and all of that. And all of this takes so much of your time. And School of Architecture needs all of your time, or you will struggle. And the focus is so much on every student. You can't hide. And now there are like 100 in a class and things that are not as many lectures. So maybe some of them could escape scrutiny, but it was that way. I thank my lecturers for persevering. Now, when I go back to campus and they are full of praise for me, I just don't know whether it's the same person they are talking about, because it was really very difficult. And it was very challenging for me because high school had been a lot easier. And I'd felt that I was that senior brother that was setting a pace. Not uni. In uni, I was feeling that I was failing in my role as that example of a firstborn. I thank God that the actual practice is a better story. Yes.
Let's just touch a bit on that. This idea that, of course, you're the firstborn, you're going to be the one leading the way. And because a lot of people have that pressure of being the firstborn. But how about that thing of moving from an excellent student to not necessarily a mediocre student, but just somebody who is cruising through? How do you juxtapose that with your current practice now? What do you have to tell somebody who it's not working out right now, but you have been through that journey and now it seems to be working out? How were you able to deal with those conflicting spaces?
It taught me a lot. So my first son is carried a similar burden, leading his brothers, leading his cousins, and sometimes I've seen him. It's almost like the fear of failure could in itself cause you to fail. And I've often had to use my life as an example to encourage him to say, I believe in you, just relax, and I know you can do it. So to many people out there, I think that it's, to some extent, when managed well, is a necessary burden, that you feel that you cannot fail, that you feel that there are people looking up to you to lead. By example, it makes you not accept mediocrity. But I accept that it can also be so burdensome that in itself could stifle you. The fear of failure could make you not act well enough. Parents should be quite sensitive to these things and be encouraging to their children. I remember one of my brothers, I won't mention names, but at a certain point, he felt the burden that the older brothers had gone ahead smoothly, and then he was struggling in school. And then to him, he thought it was too much of a burden. I engaged him in a conversation. I said, look, do you know what I went through thinking of all of you people? Do you know how much that pushed me? You ought to take this like a baton, like a relay. People have run ahead of you. Today, we've turned the baton onto you. You cannot but run. So some of these, admittedly, is pressure. It can be mentally a little difficult, but the way life is, many of us would not have attained heights if we did not feel that the people we love will accept nothing but good standards or success. It pushes us. Yeah.
So, SM, now let's zero in on a bit of your field, because I wanted to understand this idea of the man who is the architect, or the face behind the man who is the architect. Now let's come to the architecture. What does your Africanness and your identity, how does that inform the kind of practice and the kind of offering that you give to your client?
So for me, it's been about understanding that Ghana is located in a peculiar location on the earth. I mean, the way the sun rises and sets here is not the same as it is in London. The kind of climate we have here, whether it's a harmattan or the dust in our environment, is not the same as in New York. And for me, these things the kind of architecture I do ought to show sensitivity to these things here. We have cultural practices which is different, the way people would gather in people's homes or the way people go about their things. So it's understanding of being an African or a Ghanaian, for me, is telling in the products that I am coming up with as an architect. And I think as I grow, I've become a lot more sentimental and sensitive to want to have cultural translation into the kind of buildings that I do. So, say if I'm doing a project and then I want to, like, I'm doing something for a historian or somebody who maybe has an ethos of freedom, then I'm trying to link up an Edinkra symbol, which stands for freedom, with the design and things that much younger, I used to lean on aesthetics for the looks.
Okay.
But now I want aesthetics to have a grounding, to have something explicable, rooted in culture, rooted in traditions, aesthetics still, but this time can be explained or are concepts driven from cultural things rather than just for the pleasing of an eye. Yeah.
I find that fascinating because one of the criticisms I've heard, and I want us to kind of speak about Africa more generally, is you get this sense that our spaces are not designed for us, right? And they look maybe beautiful, maybe universal, but houses seem to be designed from the outside as opposed to from the inside. How people live their lives, how people experience their experiences. What is it about our architects? And partially I'm asking this because at some point you've been the president of the Association of Ghanaian Architects. But what is it about us? Is it the client who pushes the architect to do that? Or is it that our idea of beauty has always come from outside? And by that, I mean a Eurocentric view of what is beautiful, what is a global standard. It has never been informed by our own lived experiences.
So, I think that we have, it's a challenge not just for architects, but for many other professions in Ghana or in Africa. Truth is that our counterparts in, let's say, America or UK, lived with whether British traditions or English traditions, and this is what has persevered for centuries and things like so. It's easy for them to speak a language that is rooted in a certain history. I mean, when I say to speak a language, to speak an architectural language that can be explained from their history, not as in many parts of Africa. In many parts of Africa, what is our history if we do not talk about colonialism? I mean, we can't talk about our history without looking at colonialism. And colonialism left its mark so strongly. I mean, the kind of language today you and me are speaking, we got from colonialism, the kind of schools and things that the buildings, the institutions, even our constitution and all of that is something that we inherited from this. Now, to ask today's architect to speak an architectural language that is African or Ghanaian and have it uninfluenced by any of these is extremely difficult. I mean, so again, as a people, it's difficult to even say what is Ghanaian. How many languages don't we have in Ghana? So which one is Ghanaian? If to say African, how many languages don't we have across Africa? But you have many nations out there which maybe they just speak one language with a little bit of a variation, and so it's easy to say this is our language, this is our people. So that's the challenge of the Ghanaian architect. Then again, because of colonialism, our whole mentality, orientation of what is beautiful has its roots in maybe something British. So you see people who want some kind of bricks and things that some kind of Elizabethan forms and Victorian things that arches and things that is really British or is English, and they see that as beautiful. You see people who want things associated with American White House and things like that. They see that as stately and beautiful. It becomes difficult for the architect to now say, no, we want to do this as Ghanaian. Essentially, I tell myself as well that the success of my product as an architect, it cannot be removed from a client's expectation and desire, because what I'm doing is not for my use, it's for a client's use. So if the client's visual appreciations of what is pleasing and things is something that is a lot more British and things, that how do I say that let's do this, which is bamboo, which is this is what is African, because we often do projects that are commissioned by others. So we put some architectural interpretation to a client's wants, but a client sometimes have certain aesthetic appreciation, things that they consider pleasing and the home he wants to live in. So it's quite a difficult conversation for the Ghanaian architects, and it's not just the Ghanaian architect, but for the Ghanaian artists, basically, to do something that you call completely Ghanaian.
Completely Ghanaian.
Right.
And ultimately, I think you partially speak to that. We are a culture that contains multitudes, right? And it's very difficult to kind of take that essential part because we have traveled, maybe we have interacted with others. So ultimately, it just becomes a remix, but ultimately informed by a certain space. So now let's go back to a bit of the nitty-gritties. In your profession, I know sometimes it's almost like being in media or TV where everybody has an opinion, right? I can have an opinion on any building, even though I've never been to an architect school. Then maybe to the uneducated eye, a foreman will come and say, oh, don't worry, I can draw something for you and put it together for you. To somebody who is listening or watching, what case will you make for the existence of an architect? I'm saying this because now people can go to AI and say, give me a 3D image of this. What central role does an architect still play? Why would you advise somebody to say come to an architect?
So I usually make reference to how long it takes to train an architect. And over the years around us in the world, so many things have gone the lines of fast food. And so things are being revisited. Can it be done quicker and shorter and faster? And School of Architecture around the world has still stayed not less than 5 years, just like medical school. I mean, it's profound. I don't know too many other courses which are like that. Now, that should tell you that there is something so deeper than what technicians or draftsmen just can easily do, deeper than just surface thinking. If it takes 5-6 years to train an architect to do things. Now, the other thing that I want people hearing me to understand is that for most of us, at best, we may build one house or one building in a life, at best. For most people, I mean, at best. And even that is hardly attained by many people. So that house, that building is likely your heaviest investment ever. Sometimes people have had to take facilities from the bank to be able to undertake these things. Sometimes people have had to do a whole life savings. We need to entrust it to the well-trained person. I laughed at one of my clients, not in his face, but I saw a project that he had gone on and gotten a technician to do, a draftsman to do, and it turned out so badly. And I said behind him that I wish ugly buildings are cheaper. Because they end up actually spending a lot more money in doing some of these things. Often the thought is like the architect's fees are expensive, so maybe find somebody, or like you said, some AI can produce something for you. But there's so much that goes into designing buildings that, as I said, better trust it to the one who is that trained for it. The building may be there, not that it's going to break on you, but if it's not that well designed for the lifetime that you live in it, either the distance from your bedroom to your bathroom is a little longer than what it should be, or the kitchen is placed so wrongly and you're continually... So it's an experience you have to go to for the rest of your life because you chose not the right professional. Having said that, I think it's also a call on all of us architects that when we do get the opportunity to design for clients, we ought to make it that good that more people would actually recognize and say that I think I need to procure the services of architects then.
Yeah, just like medicine, if you are sick, you don't want somebody who just says, "Oh, I passed by a hospital, I know how to treat you." You actually want to entreat it to a professional. Now, listen, one of the biggest criticisms we get whenever we're having these conversations is for Ghana, which is a developing country, or a lot of African countries which are developing, the costs of buildings and materials is not reflective of our own financial realities. Most things are quoted in dollars. Buildings in parts of Accra are more expensive than places like Miami, sometimes even comparable to New York. Can you just give us an idea of, is it that the Ghanaian architect or the Ghanaian constructor has an appetite for higher profits, or there is a way that people in Ghana make money that most of us don't have access to? How come things are so expensive in Ghana? At least architecturally.
It's a multiple of issues. The first I can say is that we need industries that produce building materials. We cannot continue to depend so entirely on imports. I mean, everything, doors, hinges, ceiling, floor tiles, paint, literally everything is imported on houses. And as a country as well, for many years, our tax system found it the easiest place to make money for the country to be on imports and heavy import duties and taxes and the like. So it makes anything that you buy from outside the country, by the time it gets here, shipment and duties, you've added on another like close to 40% before people now will talk about their profit margins and things like that. That's where the problem is. But as a country, when you travel the nation, you see the kind of rocks, the kind of trees, I believe that actually we potentially have all the materials that we've been importing right here. I mean, the extent of natural resources that we are blessed with as a nation, if we can begin to kind of produce them into building materials and the like, it's very possible that these Spain and China and Italy, where we've been importing from, may suddenly say, I want marble from Ghana. I want doors from Ghana. We ought to turn the tide. I applaud the previous government on that initiative. I mean, not on all issues, but on the initiative of this one district, one factory kind of thing. I kind of think that if that can be followed through, we would have a lot more industries and things that which are actually producing from things in that vicinity and making them to such a point where it could be exported. And now the balance turns, where we are doing a lot more exports than importation. But for as long as we continue to depend heavily on imports of all building materials, for as long as a people there's that kind of import duty prices, then our final product of the buildings would also be expensive. Admittedly, I think also we don't have regulation in the real estate area about how much buildings should cost. So eventually, though, anybody is putting on any price that they like, and then the consumers are left with no option but to buy them. So yes, it's possible that the profit margins again is high, but fundamentally, if we have industries that produce building materials, and then if we can revisit the duties on imports, it brings all of these things down to the benefit of the Ghanaian home buyers.
Okay, but then let's go beyond Ghana then. You have designed projects in multiple African cities. And you have been at this for quite some time. When you go around, what is it that you see that makes you start to smile? What is changing about the African landscape? And how cities are being designed? Does it make you kind of feel like, oh, this is sad, we are losing our Afrocentricity? Or is it an exciting time to be an architect on the African continent?
So clearly our cities are not yet built. We are now building our cities. it's like so many aspects of the African story. Our story is not yet told. We are now telling them. So for all of us, it's a good time to be an African. It's a good time to be an architect. We are now defining our cities, buildings that are going to be noted, be iconic to define our cities are now coming up. So it's really great. My observation has generally been that take house for house. Many of the houses you may see in Accra, you may see in Kigali or Joburg or Lagos or Abuja, they're quite good internationally. If you look at them externally, very pleasing. If you entered into their living room spaces and the kitchens and things people are doing, amazing things people are doing. So the individuals are doing great things. But the big problem for me in our cities is still to do with the road systems and the planning of the cities. That though is disgraceful. It's disgraceful. Sanitation, the open gutters, the potholes and things that it ought not to be in any city today. But these are very rampant. I see that to be a failure of the system. So I see many individuals themselves on their own, on that their single plot, on that their house, building something that is comparable internationally to many homes elsewhere. Come out of that house and the street right in front of it, the width of it, the what we call highways, how many lanes, traffic lights, gutters, and all of it. That though you cannot believe that in the age we are in, these are the kind of environment we have around our cities. That ought to improve.
You know, it's funny you say that. Arundhati Roy, there's this amazing author from India I love. She talks about India existing in many centuries, right? Like she uses this analogy where the feet are in the 16th century, you know, the torso is in the 18th century, the heart is in the 19th century, and kind of the head being in the 21st century. And in many ways, that could be the reality of being an African, right? You have access to all these ideas. People are doing amazing things, but our infrastructure is still caught up in, and that I fully sympathize with. Listen, I want to ask you one critical thing. What do you think is a superpower as an architect?
So you want me to tell everybody?
Yes.
Well, I've asked myself this question a lot of times. I think that it has to do with how I relate with my clients. I get quite a number of my clients, people just saying, he's a nice guy. I understood many years ago that my profession would usually deal with people who are affluent. I mean, to want to build a house or to do your office building, you ought to probably be able to have afforded your basics. Now, these people often need to be well managed in terms of how you interact with them, and often people have things they wish that would be about their home or their building, but not everybody can articulate them or say them so well. So you ought to have a personality that when clients meet up with you, they feel so relaxed to talk and express. Some of the things can be quite funny, the things they want. I mean, but you ought to be that person that they can feel free to say them. I recall one funny one where a man was talking to me about the home he wanted, and then he actually said, but give me an extra bedroom next to my bedroom. I said, okay. So I'd done that, and I was putting a bathroom, and I says, oh, no. I me and my wife tend to have our own challenges, but is that space I'll go and sleep where there are issues between me and my wife. And I said, okay. So, I mean, he was able to express some of these things, I believe, because we seem to have bonded in a certain way where he felt relaxed to share the things he wants. Somebody ought to be able to say, I want a house, and when anybody walks in, they actually know that, yes, I'm the person. But it's almost boastful. They can't share it with somebody who doesn't seem so personal to them. So I think as an architect, I have developed, it's probably something more to do with my personality, that people walk into my office or I meet with people and they feel they can express to me what they want, and I give it an architectural interpretation. Of course, I'm happy with the final products that we're doing as well. I hear people saying how beautiful our projects have looked, and we've won a couple of awards that attest to that. But I would say that essentially it's about how I connect with people. It's been one major selling point for my business.
Okay. So walk me through that. It's unfair to ask you to choose because I'm sure all the projects you've designed, ultimately they are like your babies. And it's very difficult for you to say, you know what, it is this one that I really loved. But can you just highlight a few projects that have, when you design them, you say, you know what, from conception to execution to the final product, this makes me comfortable. And if this was going to remain as my legacy, I would die a happy man.
Okay, so for sentimental reasons, I love the home I did for my parents in Winnipeg. It's just a 3-bedroom house. A few years ago, when they had retired from their missions abroad, we did some major refurbishment for them. But anytime I've gone there and then felt like, so they birthed me, they took me to school, and then I designed this home for them. It feels very good. It's a single-story bungalow, kind of 250 square meter home. But they enjoy it. You see, they're sitting on their terrace and enjoying the breeze and things like that in Winnipeg. In more recent times, a home I did for my wife as a gift for our 25th anniversary, I found myself so intensely involved in it. So I was thinking that year that this woman has been good to me for 25 years. What gift am I going to give to her that is truly me? I mean, we had done the cars and the diamonds and the gold and all of those things, but now what? I mean, for 25 years. And I thought about doing a home that I designed and actually construct. And I wanted it to be a surprise as well for her. And then I thought maybe I should work with something that is not our usual. So I tried to work with shipping containers. It's on the outskirts of Ebury. Again, not a big home, 4-bedroom, swimming pool, beautiful grounds, borehole, nature, views onto the hills. But I think that intensely keeping it as a surprise, thinking about how for her and the children, they will be so excited the day that I unveil it to them. It kept me on such a high for about 7-8 months. And then thinking of every space there, from the front gates, from the driveway, the doors, the kitchen, everything in terms of material, who would do the construction. I was blessed to meet with a Ghanaian who is German actually, but he's lived all his life in Germany. Joe came down and then he did the interior construction for me. My youngest brother, Emmanuel, he put together the entire structure from the outside. But that whole experience of doing a home for my wife as a gift for our 25th anniversary was so intense. It was an experience that, anytime I look back, and the outcome of it, I see it with joy. The timing that we took to do the construction amazes many people because it was about from July to December, and then we had the project to be able to present. There are many people who I found a lot of Ghanaians who just collaborated with me because of the goal. So I mean, people would say, SM, even if you don't have the money, we want to do it with you. You can give us money later on. And they supported so strongly because it was all like, let's do this for our wife, kind of. So it was intense. It was different from other projects I've done, where it's essentially a client and then they pay you and then you're doing this. And eventually on the day that it was given, Kama was like, I mean, I want to relive that day forever, like to see the effect on her and the children to say, what, like this is our home. How did you do this? When did you do it? For an architect.
So it was a secret from everybody.
Nobody. Okay, so
once you were building it, she did not have any clue.
She had no clue. I mean, it was easy to hide it. Sometimes I'll be having discussions about the project with her at the dining table with another person. She could hear it, but she always thought it was some project I'm doing for someone. Mm-hmm. I had to involve my second son, who is an architect, a student architect, because he had come home on internship and everything was being run from the office. So at the point, I had to let him know that this is something I'm doing. That's for mommy. And it was exciting, really a very exciting experience. I mean, it tells me that it's not all about the money and being paid for, but when sometimes some of these emotions connected with the project, it's everything. It fuels your joy and it keeps your adrenaline. You want to just see it happen, the reality of it. Amazing.
And to that specifically, after these many years, after these many projects, you almost sound like this that childlike joy and spirit that you bring to architecture. How have you been able to sustain that excitement and joy of either commissioning or starting a project?
I would almost think that the day one loses it, it probably would start to say that you don't want to be in this profession anymore. You need that kind of thing. It's what pushes you to stay the long hours. It's what pushes you to go through one project after another. Is like the joy of wanting to see it completed, wanting it to see it come to life, So I guess it's something many architects have, that kind of thing. It's an artist kind of thing. You conceive something on paper. Sometimes it's in your head. It comes on paper. It's in the computer. A client sees it. It's just a picture. And then one day it's coming to fruition. And then actually the reality often is even more exciting than what you put together on paper. So, I mean, even as I'm talking about it, I'm still smiling about it.
And you know what? Whether we want to admit it or not, you're one of the, in a competitive field, you're one of the very few people who is a working architect who gets to have many projects commissioned, and we'll talk about some of them shortly. But a lot of people might never get to see the joy of, because of the expenses involved, because sometimes in Ghana, is pocket to, I know you joke about this idea that sometimes you build your house from your bedroom, but some people might never get to see what they conceived until maybe 5, 7, 10 years later as an architect. What is it about the architect that allows them to be patient or allows them to understand that in the long term it will all work out, and to almost go through that punishment? Because in an age of instant gratification, earlier on you're alluding to kind of the McDonaldization of the world and the fast food, but how is an architect still able to sustain that patience?
I can't pretend I have the answers. I still, after over 30 years of practice, have a lot of heartbreak with this profession. It happens almost so often still to me. I mean, anytime I've dialogued with other architects, they've actually also thought that maybe I don't go through these things. Yeah, it is. The thing is that in this part of the world, and generally for many places as well, the things that we do as architects are just the first part of a bigger cost to come. So you fulfilled a client's dream by saying designing their clinic or their office or their hotel. But that aspect is just a step one. The bigger thing is about finding the financing to actually do the project. And in these parts of the world, a lot of people try to do this financing from their direct income and things that it's difficult. It is difficult. And then also with changing
economic realities.
Right. So many people have the dream. They talk to their architect. They truly think they want to do it. Then by the time the drawings are ready and everything else, truly their financing is not the same. And so something that could have been done in a year takes 4 years. Or there's this really not a dark side to our land systems where you've bought a land, you've registered it, and you find out that another person too has documentation for the same. So backward. I mean, that part is so shameful. I'm praying that it becomes a thing of the past soon. But people have gone to see the architects and gone paid for drawings, and then maybe upon entering their site, they find out that there's another person contesting ownership of the land, and so the project has to be shelved for years through courts. with the kind of borrowing rates we have with the banks and things, that it makes it almost ridiculous to go and borrow money to do for projects. Right.
Yes, sometimes you are hitting 30%.
30%. So
even with the dollar rate, which is consistently collapsing.
These are the downsides in this space of architecture. And I think that for all of us architects, we're going to have to understand this. Now, I'm thinking that more architects should begin to look into how to procure finance for projects, because it's been the thing that makes a lot of projects never realized. Once finances can be secured for projects, it can be sure that many projects will see the daylight.
Okay.
You know, if we drive around our cities, it's so shameful how many buildings are left uncompleted for years. Somebody said that there are as many as the builds projects, if not more. No, it's terrible. And so we all need to revisit it. Come on, for every building that's been left for 5 years, 10 years uncompleted, do you know what actually it means? The kind of money that has been left, let's say, in the ground. That's what it means. It's like you buried, let's say, 200,000 in the ground here. You buried another 50,000 in the ground.
Wow,
here.
if you had
That's
just
actually what it means.
converted that
Yes,
into an active...
and it continues to stay in the ground for 10 years, for 15 years. Ridiculous. I think that so much capital, so much money that could have moved this country forward are left in uncompleted homes and buildings all around us.
And could that be, in a way, and I don't want us to delve too much into this, but I understand the issue of financing. I understand the issue of whether it's lands but sometimes, and I don't know whether this is because we struggle to actually understand distance and space, but sometimes we're overly ambitious. What could have been a 2-3 bedroom finished house is now a church hall. I mean, people start building, and this is not to make fun of us, but people start building when their kids are in kindergarten, and by the time they are completing, their kids are completing universities.
So let me tell you a story. So my father and mother, they started a house. They started a house that was 8-bedroom house because they said they have 7 sons. So they are building an 8-bedroom house. I remember when they started the house, I must have been in early years in secondary school. Literally 20 years later, the project was never still fully completed.
Wow.
I'm telling you. Eventually, they never lived in that place. We had to do a 3-bedroom house for them, which is what they retired to. I think it's a Ghanaian thing about the house. There's a perception as if when it's big,
it's a reflection of
yes, and
where I am in life.
We often fail to understand that your children will leave home, and actually in your older years, it is more difficult to maintain that house than so. I've had cases when clients are talking to me and they are in their 50s or 60s and they want such a huge house that to them reflects their status. And I'm trying to say, your children are all old, they are going to go, and nobody would be coming to sleep there, but they still, many people feel for what they are, if they only had a 3-bedroom house, it's as if it's not a reflection of their stature or something. It's a big...
No, I couldn't agree more. Now, Esam, you know what? I'm not an architect, but I do empathize with you where some people say, you're as good as your last project. But, for lack of a better phrase, you are paid for your project and then that relationship is over once it's completed. So how as an architect do you maintain this idea of, it's true, I'm successful on paper, I've done all these projects, but all that money was finished, right? and maybe you don't have healthcare, maybe the school fees on the kids. How do you remain financially disciplined if the income is not coming regularly? Like, how does an architect sustain his livelihood, especially if you have a practice where every month you have 7 architects looking at you like you're our lifeblood, you're a lifeline in terms of finances, and yet the income is dried up when it comes to projects?
So this is one question. I don't think I have the answers necessarily, but for me, it's been about defining what is is success or what I want in this life from this profession. So I take it that I'll be happy that through this profession, I'm able to build a home.
Okay.
I'll be happy that through this profession, I'm able to take care of my children. I'll be happy that through this profession, when people walk into my office to train, I can give them good training that equips them for life, that for the period that they are working with me, that they feel rewarded for their labor. So I get troubled, for example, if a month ending should come and I should not be in a position to have paid salaries. I'll be really troubled. I'll be troubled if, say, my kids have to go to school and you cannot pay school fees. But I've measured my expectations from this profession to a certain minimum of these things. If God favors me that there's so much more income, I would say thank you, Lord. But I think sometimes people's expectations have been a little much higher because of the way, for an architect, almost every few days you're talking to people about some potential business, and you can actually be dreaming about this one will bring me 100,000, and this will bring me another 50,000, and this will bring me this, that, and they never materialize. So then that becomes very disappointing. I think it's to measure your expectation and then take it one day at a time. If you have not sealed the job and actually held the check, you don't have it. And you must make your mind that you don't have it till you are holding that check, or even sometimes you can hold the check and it may not clear in your account. So it's something about measuring your expectations in this life. And there have been a time when the office has been bigger than what it is today. If the jobs are not as much, if you have to scale down, you should scale down. So it's being realistic to about what your income is and what it can afford you to live. I think, but it's a question which I believe that I don't fully have the answers. I myself, I'm traversing that journey, but this is how I'm going about it. It's just measuring my expectation in life and then taking it as it truly happens, not dreaming ahead of myself. Because sometimes you can't actually start dreaming. You talk to a client, you're about to do a 5-star hotel, and then you can actually say that, oh, that brings some $2 million income.
You can start constructing your life around an idea that has not been realized.
Yeah. And it can get you into that space where you would feel such huge disappointments and
entitled and bitter if things don't want to. Listen, I think it's important for people to realize that you have an earned opinion that is born out of experiences, that is born out of projects, over 50 projects around this continent. And then what I find fascinating is you still are out there putting your career in judgment, where you're looking for competitions, you're winning them, sometimes you're losing them. But lately, I'm quite excited about one particular project because it brings everything almost together, whether it is your dad's work in academia and it is your life in another part of this country in Kumasi. Can you kindly speak to us about this project that you recently and your firm won?
Okay, so they actually call it the University of Ghana Student Experience Center, UG Student Experience Center. It was a competition that the Ghana Institute of Architects organized. They shortlisted, I think, 11 or so top firms in the country. It was exciting actually to be in it. I mean, such respect I had for all the contestants. I think it drove me to want to work harder to even win it. And I'm happy and proud of my team for the kind of input that they did. It was also a competition that I had the pleasure of working with my son, who and his friends from school. They had come to the office as interns, and we just generated such energy with them. You know, day and night, weekends, staying in and putting in such solid performance that brought us the first prize. I'm happy about it.
Listen, because I don't want to count your money and I don't want to, in Ghana, there's this joke where sometimes we don't want to show how much is out there in case people start asking for help.
Yeah.
But just, what is the enormity of this project? When realize how much is Legon planning to invest into this project?
Okay, so at the competition level, it was $80 million project. in current conversations, it could be going closer to 100, not yet firmed, but that much. And for all my years of practice, though, this will be the biggest commission when signed. So I'm very happy about it. Yes.
Wow. You know, SM, first of all,
And
congratulations.
come on, it felt good to win. I mean, I'm happy about winning it, as in say I got such a project. But I think that that's exciting for me, that the peer respect you earn, because it was really fiercely contested for. We were by far the best. There were nobody close to us in terms
This
of the
is
score.
purely merit. This is
Yes.
this is not about who you know and which door you
No. It was one of those competitions. They call them anonymous competitions. So the judges have no idea of who scheme they are judging.
Okay.
No identification of your name whatsoever, your company. That would lead to disqualification.
Okay, so they don't intimidate us with the weight of your name.
No.
Just purely blank. Okay, and how about the rest of Africa? Have you designed some projects that kind of stand out for you?
We're currently on the brink of doing something in Madagascar. I hope that it sees the daylight, but it's like a conference center for Antananarivo.
Wow.
That's an exciting one that in the last 6 months we've been going over a couple of times and discussing with their presidency about it. We've done the drawings. We hope that it'll come to light.
So for you, it's important to kind of have a Pan-African vision and not just be rooted, to get inspiration from Ghana, but not to remain a Ghanaian from...
There's so much to do already in Ghana, but I think it will be a good thing for Ghanaians to believe that for the quality of training that we have, actually, we should stretch our vision beyond Ghana. That other African countries, they have such high regard for Ghanaian professionals, so they will be more than happy to welcome us. But I think for most of us, we're so conservatively fixated on Ghana.
Okay.
Yeah.
One of the things I respect about you is this, a lot of us, because of this mentality of scarcity in our continent, we tend to hoard ideas. One of the things that stands out about you is your generosity of spirit, where you are sharing, whether you're mentoring young people, whether you're going to universities to give talks, but not only that, to also lend your voice to international platforms. I remember watching CNN and I saw you on African Voices. First of all, how was that experience like? And why is it important for you to not only lend your voice to important issues, but to make sure that your profession remains alive?
Okay, so I think probably is that the teacher from my parents. So both my parents are actually teachers. So maybe I love to share. And as a person, I believe that it does not make me less of a person. That God, who's the source of our businesses and our being, He can bless me with business and bless everybody else with business. So I don't see things as if you help others, it means that it limits your opportunity. The CNN platform was an amazing experience, kind of overwhelmingly exciting. Though if you ask me, that I think that the time allowed on that platform was so short that I've met quite a few people who recall seeing it, but that it did not sell my profession as much. But just to have even made an appearance for me is so overwhelmingly massive. I wish that I'd been on for a little more minutes than what it is. Then again, I think as a person, I hadn't fully understood the power of that kind of platform and how to capitalize on it for business. So we ought to have made a lot more noise about the Ghanaian architect who featured on CNN, etc. It helps to bring in a lot more business. But how many other Ghanaians get an opportunity to be on such a platform? So for that, I'm extremely grateful for the opportunity.
Well, this platform is bigger than CNN. So this I assure you, our audience is diverse. It's from all over the world, and I'm sure they'll be excited to work with you. Yeah. So now, the final thing. Essen, how scared are you about AI? And how is AI revolutionizing the field?
So I must be honest and say that I'm not as wide-read about it. Perhaps that speaks to either sheer ignorance or the fear of it. Okay. Yeah. Though I've been believing that it ought to have a point where it will be to our benefit rather than to say it signals our annihilation. So I recall years ago when I completed school was when computer aided design or CAD softwares had started to come into the country. And I recall my bosses and many other architects who actually said that's the end of us. And actually, that was not the end of us. It actually came in to enhance what we do. The kind of forms we are doing today because of softwares is amazing. We could never have done them without these things here. So to start, I am not as wide read about AI and what it's going to be, but I'm fully believing that it's going to be eventually not wipe us or make us irrelevant. But if we can understand it better, maybe I see the part of it where it probably can analyze a client in a more scientific way, a client's request in a more scientific way than the human mind may be able to, or analyze sites for us with all the data about whether the sun, the wind, and all of those things, and that then partners with my creativity to turn out more successful projects that are environmentally more responsive than I may have been able to do without AI. So for me, that's my thoughts now. I mean, I think it's about time we got a little deeper into what it brings. But admittedly, I have not done much read on it.
We are in a space where we are kind of afraid to say we don't know. So it's really interesting. So look, this is where I am in my journey. I'll find about it, but right now I don't know. So ultimately, architecture does our clavers, right? When people enter your spaces and when ultimately, whether you like it or not, your buildings will live longer than you. What do you want for the people that enter those spaces or experience them? What do you want them to have felt about the person who designed those, even though you do not necessarily have control over that? What do you want your contribution to have been in the landscape of Ghana and Africa as a whole?
I'm an architect that loves identity. I feel that my buildings ought to be like a collection items, and each one ought to speak a unique identity. Identity in either its looks, identity in its response to its immediate space, landscaping, etc. Of course, because it's signatured by me, it would have things that you can easily tell this must be SM's work or atelier doing. But I look at my profession and say that the success of it will be down the years, how it stays relevant. I've seen buildings that obviously seemed that years ago they were interesting or they were good, and after very few years or a decade or two, they seemed irrelevant because they seem not to have anticipated what the world is going to turn out to be. So I like spaces that feels like it could be reconfigured with time and with the way the world is changing. I like things that stay simple and therefore would still be useful over the years, because we're in a fast changing world, and simple lines and clean lines and exciting. I mean, it stays beautiful today. It will stay beautiful in 30 years and things like that. But 30 years down the line, I would like that when people walk into spaces I've designed, they should say, I'm amazed that 30 years ago or 50 years ago, somebody could create this. Some of it would have to be how we push the boundaries in terms of how we collaborate with technology, smartness, and engineering challenges. How it sounds like sometimes a simple example could be, how are they able to hang this building this way without any support? How did they even construct this? How did this come into their minds? So we try to put in spaces that we believe would evoke such conversations many years later. It's not a very easy thing though, because to a large extent, the things we are doing ought to be acceptable and approved by a client who do they also have that vision that I want my building that 40 years later. Maybe to him, he's thinking of the now and that's it, you know, but when we have an opportunity that we can influence those decisions, we like to take decisions that we believe that time would make it even more admirable. Then is also the conversation about landscaping, which for me, like trees and plants, which enhance buildings even with the years as they grow, as they mature, and all of that. So there have been many buildings that I've seen that at the time when it was completed, people must have said it's beautiful. But 10 years later, I've been there and it's been more beautiful because now the trees have grown and the way that it interacts with the buildings, it looks a lot more beautiful. So all of this, we try to, think ahead. Worst will be if the choice of materials do not stand the test of time for me. A bit of it is a collaborative effort by a client who has a maintenance culture in their, they want to keep the building, but some of it to the very materials are they things that are lasting, that 20 years, 30 years down the line wouldn't have fallen apart and things like that. But I must say we are mindful of all of this, knowing that buildings are not just for this Christmas.
They are for
a lifetime. Yeah.
You know, ISM, I've really enjoyed this. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Hopefully you come again. I hope you had a good time and see you later.
It's been a pleasure, Kamal. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ISM.